Alright, so now we're going to go over 23. So find the values for x that make this an acute triangle. So the way I think about these types of questions is I think of a right triangle, alright, and I know that, okay, this is the converse of the Pythagorean theorem here. If we have a right triangle, the Pythagorean theorem tells us that a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Alright, now how do you tell if it's acute or obtuse? Now imagine you take this picture right here on the left and C gets bigger, but A and B stay the same size. So C gets bigger, but A and B stay the same size. Well, if C grows, then the angle across from C is going to get bigger. So I think of this picture in my head and I think, well, if the hypotenuse squared is bigger than the leg squared, then that means the angle across from the hypotenuse has to be bigger than 90, which means it has to be an obtuse triangle. Alright, and then I think of the same thing if I have a right triangle and then the hypotenuse suddenly gets smaller. Well, then the angle across from the hypotenuse will also get smaller. So if c squared is less than a squared plus b squared, then it's going to be an acute triangle. Alright, so this is what we're going to use in number 23 because we have an acute angle. So, or we're trying to find what values for x would make one acute. So now if I just erase this to give myself some room, we know that in order for this triangle to be acute, x squared, the hypotenuse squared, has to be less than the leg squared. So 6 squared plus 8 squared. And 6 squared is 36 and 8 squared is 64. You add them up and you get 100. So if you take the square root, you get that x has to be less than 10. So pretty much, if you think of this particular example, if this side is 6 and this side is 8 and that side is 10, we have a right triangle. But if this side is less than 10 and 6 and 8 stay the same, alright, now this angle here is going to be less than 90. It's going to be acute. So another thing to keep in mind here is that we also have to make sure that this makes a triangle. So remember that, like, if let's say the biggest side was 8 and this side was 6 and this side was 2, then since 6 plus 2 is equal to 8, those two sides wouldn't make a triangle with 8 because they're not long enough to reach each other. So we also have to make sure that any two sides of the triangle add up to be more than the third side. So since 2 plus 6 is equal to 8, we have to make sure that x is bigger than 2 so that it adds to 6 to be bigger than 8. Alright, and we don't have to worry about it the other way around because the biggest that x could be would be 10. So 6 plus 8 is already bigger than 10. So we just have to make sure that the side is long enough to reach 6 to make a triangle.